What's up guys, it's ALLDAYANTHONY, and in today's video, the restoration of our $1,000 Honda Grom begins. Let's go. Come on. It's running worse, so... All right, and welcome back to our $1,000 Honda Grom Project Build series, where today we're going to be transforming this $1,000 used and abused Honda Grom into this. Okay, actually we're not doing that, but instead we are going to get this thing significantly more cleaned up than what it is. Now, if you did not see the first video in this series, I purchased this Honda Grom for $1,000. And there's a lot of good about it, and there's a lot of bad about it. It's pretty jank, but at one point, somebody had the right intentions with some of the right mods, but it needs a lot of love. This thing has surface rust all over the frame. It's currently not running right with a pretty bad idle. And honestly, with the condition of a lot of the other things, it has me truly questioning how many other janky mods and things are hiding underneath these plastics here. So the goal of today's video is to not necessarily transform it, but to make it as literally clean as this bike right here. So we are actually going to be disassembling most of the plastics and most of the body on the bike to get a better idea of how rough or maybe how good this thing actually is. I'm really looking forward to this. I've been dying to do it, and maybe even we'll put the cherry on top and try to polish out some of these plastics to see if we can get this thing to look better than what it is. So let me show you what we're working with as far as tools go and products go. So let's head over to the bench. All right, so the tools needed to disassemble an entire Honda Grom, you can pretty much count with like both hands. It's literally nothing. But for the bodywork itself, you can use a 10 mil socket with a ratchet, a 5 mil Allen, and then a normal Phillips screwdriver. And you should pretty much be able to take apart everything. Now, my friend Jose over at UCD Motorsport did send me out this toolkit to try out from Sonic Tools. I've never used Sonic Tools before, but I have some Wera here. I've got Koken, I've got Hazet, and I've got Husky. But I really want to give this stuff a try and see how it does. So I got this all laid out here on the table. But for the detail stuff and the actual cleaning, that's going to be an entire set of stuff. So let's go over here. So the first thing here is a fridge cigarette, so you need to grab yourself one of those. But as far as brushes and cleaning goes, once I take off the body panels, I'm just going to be going through with a handful of different brushes here, and then I'm using Magic Wheel Cleaner, which is a great degreaser and fallout remover. So all that surface rust I was talking about, this should actually be able to penetrate and eat most of that away. And anything that's left over, I know is going to be deeper and is going to require some grinding and sanding. I also have an all-purpose cleaner. This is Green Star from Kosh Chemi. I have some Shampoo Plus from Armor Detail Supply, just as a pH balance shampoo. But then for the throttle body, we need to clean that out because I have a feeling it's going to be pretty gross. And then brake parts cleaner just for random extra gunk and grease. And then again, if we can get to it on the body itself after addressing the idle issue and the exhaust, I would like to polish out the panels to see if we can get those cleaned up and get that blue popping. Even though we are probably going to be swapping out most of the color on the bike, maybe with just new plastics, I still want to see, you know, can we get these scratches out? Can we get this cleaned up and truly do a decent restore with what we have here? So anyways, that's enough talking. Let's get to work and start disassembling the bodywork. All right, guys, so I just finished up taking off most of the plastics here, and I'm not gonna lie to you. I was expecting the worst, and somehow I got close to the best. The best case scenario. I'm so freaking pumped right now. Truthfully, I was expecting that the plastics were gonna come off and I was gonna find out that this Grom had been through an even rougher life than I thought. And no, not the case, not even a little bit. So everything is intact. Almost everything is intact. It's very dirty, it's very dusty. There is a ton of clay still on the underside of the tank and the frame here, but I truthfully was expecting to find just a ton of surface rust. I thought this was gonna be kind of a nightmare based on what I had saw kind of dripping through most of the plastics, and not even a little bit. I don't see any major surface rust, a couple spots here and there, but stuff that I think is gonna clean up pretty nicely. This right here, I don't even know what that is. And then coming up from there doesn't look to be anything majorly out of place. The rear brake reservoir was literally just chilling, I think, inside the fairing there, so we'll have to get that bolted back up. But all of the wiring and everything still looks pretty intact. A lot of these grounds are really dirty, so we'll have to clean that up. This right here is all kind of jank, so we'll have to get all that wiring fixed. And then coming over to this side, ECU over here still looks to be stock, not modified. We have our kind of drainage lines from the tank. And then the underside here, it's brutal. So it's kind of hard to see in this light, but there's so much clay buildup, and I think underneath that clay there could be some potential surface rust, so we'll see. And then coming around to this tray, there's some jankiness here. Couple holes drilled for I don't know what reason. So we'll probably end up replacing this whole bottom tray and get that nice and new, replace everything in here, rewire and basically organize all of this to make sure it's super clean. And then this man-in-the-box tilt tidy is in good shape. Like, it doesn't look like there's any major damage. It just looks kind of like off kilt. So what I think I'm gonna do is grab like a heat gun after we clean everything up, and then take a hammer, like a rubber mallet, and see if I can just kind of tap it up and get an alignment again, because it looks like the bend is right here. So I'll see if I can just bend that back, and if I can, that should be pretty much perfect, and meaning that we can continue to use that tail tidy. From here, I think the next process is going to be the deep clean. So we're going to wheel this thing out into the driveway, get the pressure washer, get the soap, get all the degreasers mixed up. We're going to mask off anything that is sensitive, electronic-wise. I'll grab some Ziploc baggies and some zip ties. Most of this should clean up, but I'm really excited to see how this is going to look, and I'm hoping that we can make this thing look brand freaking new again. Let's get after it. So getting into this deep clean / detail, I figured the best way to approach this was to kind of treat the Grom like it's been sitting in a barn for years, because it kind of looks like that. Now, the Grom isn't a dirt bike, it's a street bike, so it's not going to be as probably resistant to pressure washing like a dirt bike, so I still wanted to mask off all these sensitive areas and kind of put trash bags on the electronics. Now, I ended up pre-treating the frame and pretty much the entire bike with a wheel cleaner that had a built-in fallout remover. So what this means is that the fallout remover will actually attack surface rust as well as any type of iron particulates that have been sitting on the bike for a long period of time. Now, you'll notice this because everything kind of turns purple. Now, following this, and after sitting for about a few minutes, I just pressure washed everything off, and almost immediately there was a pretty night and day difference, although everything was kind of wet and everything mostly looks good when it's wet. So following a quick rinse, I grabbed an all-purpose cleaner and then just started kind of dousing areas that had the biggest dirt buildup, and then went through with a soft bristle brush to try to agitate things. Now, this is where I started to get kind of disappointed, because some of this clay was just simply not coming off with this brush, but I didn't want to pull out something super aggressive and start scratching the frame. So I kind of had to play a balancing act of trying to scrub, but also let the chemical do the work, and ultimately I kind of gave the tires a scrub too, which really didn't do much, but it made me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. Now, after the scrubbing and getting all that dirt loosened up, I foamed on a pH neutral snow foam just to kind of let it pull the rest of the dirt to the bottom of the bike. This is also going to help neutralize any of the chemicals that we were using, so that way there's nothing left over that's going to cause any staining or anything like that. I ended up actually going through with another microfiber towel, a little bit of soap, and kind of cleaning some areas up, but I have no idea where that footage is, so just enjoy these beautiful foam shots. Now, after rinsing off the foam with the pressure washer, I took my motorcycle blow dryer. Yes, they do make those. And I blew out all the cracks and crevices, especially all the electrical stuff. Now, I highly recommend one of these, or at least just a leaf blower. I don't know how some people just let their motorcycle be wet and drip dry like an alley cat. You guys are freaks. Do not do that. So for the fairings and everything else, I just took that to the lawn with a wash bucket, a wash mitt, some soap, and the pressure washer, and just cleaned that separately, as we were going to be polishing those later. All right, guys, so we are back in the garage after that cleaning, and despite all the effort and all of the cool shots and all of that, it did not go as good as I had hoped. Basically, a lot of that Georgia dirt is unlike any dirt I'd ever seen. I mean, that clay really sticks on there. I mean, outside of using straight brake cleaner, I was scrubbing the crap out of stuff, and it just wasn't getting any better. So that brings me to the next iteration of our clean that I literally didn't even want to do, which is the steamer over here. So we're gonna break that out with some towels, and I don't know, I'm gonna probably get inside here and try to clean this up the best I can with just a little interior cleaner, but all this is gonna come out anyways. This whole job, what we're doing right now, is just trying to see what we have, what we're working with, while we continue trying to get this to be running better and all of that. Let's go ahead, get the steamer out here, and see what we can do. So steam cleaning is a pretty killer option when it comes to motorcycle detailing and cleaning, especially if you have a bike that's relatively maintained. Now, I like this because you're not introducing a ton of water to the bike. I ended up using the steamer on all the underseat areas and pretty much everywhere else that I wanted to kind of get a better, deeper clean. So I ended up using it on the engine, I used it around the frame, and I found that it did a pretty good job at dislodging a lot of this Georgia clay, but it's still pretty caked on there. So I think really the move would be a combination of steam cleaning as well as using like a brush with an all-purpose cleaner just to kind of agitate those areas, loosen it up, and then steam it. But anyways, I just wanted to give a special shout out to the steamer because it was putting in serious work. All right, so brand new Chimera intake with a K&N filter, so stoked on that. I haven't ran the Chimera intake, but I had a Dingerbilt intake that I had back in the day that was super sick, but also ran, I think, the same K&N filter. I'm at that level of impatience right now where I'm like I'm just like at the point where I'm like, let's get this thing on here and let's see if it fixes or changes anything. That's where I'm at right now. Obviously this thing's not all that sensitive because the fact that this has just been dangling on my bike for as long as it has. So let's see, that's gonna go like that. Do we want the access to the screw? Yeah, probably right there. I can imagine this bracket is gonna have to get bent. Literally, it's gonna have to get bent. I think we just gotta hammer this kind of out of the way. So we're gonna route this up through here and hope that we have enough vacuum line to work with, because this has been cut. All right, I think we should be good to go. I don't think there's really any reason why this shouldn't fire right up. We got power. All right. Oh, I guess I cleaned the throttle body. Come on, baby. Really? Come on. Well, it's running worse, so that's not good. I mean, we're pretty much idling right now, 900 to $1,000. Let's see if it picks it up here in a second. So best case scenario from here is that, I mean, we have that's all sealed up, that's sealed up. We're getting a pretty significant amount of more air here. Okay, that's not from me, that's just the bike doing what it normally does there, which is some weird crap. What is that plug? And is that thing barely hanging on? What the hell? Oh my god, it's not even plugged in. That's completely broken. That is completely broken. All right, guys, so it is the next day, and fortunately, my local Honda dealer, Carl Cycle Sales, actually had one of these solenoids in stock. Couldn't believe it. So we're gonna go ahead and get this on there, and fingers crossed, this solves our issue. And then I think that these bolts here are, I think, T25s, and we'll get this off here. You can see this thing is just barely, I mean, the plug is all mangled up. I don't really know how this happens, to be honest, but we'll get this all put back together. Off. Well, I'm glad the connector's in good shape, though. I didn't really know how that was all gonna clean up, but yeah, that's good. And take a look at the new one here and see what needs to transfer over. So if we put it at that orientation, it looks like it's actually just that. So this, we're just gonna line back up there. Let's start this thing up and see if this has solved all of our issues. All right, so we're gonna know this is fixed if we start it up and it goes to the correct startup idle speed, and then eventually once it's warm, it changes to the other map, and it basically will idle at 1500 from then on out. Come on, we got this. We got this. Please, please, please. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Yes. That's it. That sounds so much healthier.
So now that the Grom was running a bit better and idling healthier, I thought I would adjust that rear tail tidy and try to bend it back to its original form. I heated it up and tried to hammer it in place. That didn't really work, so I put it in the vise and simply bent it by hand, and I was able to get this thing pretty much perfect, and I was so stoked on that. I ended up re-dyeing some of the plastics. Even though that these are going to get replaced, I thought it would just look better in the meantime. Following that, I started the reassembly of the entire bike. Now, I'm pretty meticulous about how I put things together, so this time around, the bike actually started coming together pretty nicely with all the different fairings and fit much better than it previously did when I took them off.
All right, guys, so I just finished putting the plastics back on the bike and they fit so much better. So the whole tail section here was completely wonky. So this LED, this whole bracket is supposed to be hidden back within this cowling, not stick out like it was. So once I bent this back, which I'm surprised I was able to do it, I was able to actually get this lined up and properly fitting like it should. So the whole tail section is like OEM fresh, good to go. The brake reservoir here on the rear, that took some finagling because for some reason it just did not want to find its home. I don't know if the plastics had just been kind of bowed out for so long, but I got it cinched in there, and I think we should be okay. If anything's gonna break, it's gonna be the bracket, and hopefully there's no brake fluid that falls with that. With that done, the last thing that we need to do is actually throw on this fairing rod. So the fairing rod's important when you run a intake because of this play right here. So when you're actually riding, this will start off flaring and look kind of wonky. So what you do is you take this rod, you take these bolts out right here, and then you run this on the inside of the fairings, and it'll actually tighten everything up. So something I highly recommend if you have an OG, or I think even an SF, and you're planning on running an intake, you definitely want to get yourself a fairing rod. So this installs in like 2 seconds. So let's get this on here.
Now, once we had the fairing rod in, I went through and taped off some of the black plastics just to see if we can give this a quick once-over detail. So I pulled out my new Rupes iBrid 2 along with some pads and some compounds to see if we can restore some of this finish. And to my surprise, a lot of these scratches actually came out, and this blue really started popping. So from here, it was really more or less just a matter of cleaning it up because these aren't going to be staying on the bike long term, but if I can resell them in the future or it makes sense to try to recoup some cost, why not polish them and see if we can make this thing shine. Now, with the plastics looking amazing, I had some spare MSX stickers from Thailand just kind of lying around, so I thought I would throw those on the bike just to kind of see what it looked like, and it actually turned out pretty well. So at this point, we were just waiting on the exhaust gasket coming in for the Chimera header pipe, which is right about now.
All right, so it's been a few days, and the good news is that the header gasket has been delivered, but the bad news is that it's going to rain for like the next 4 days, which means we may not be able to ride after everything is put together, but that's not going to stop us from installing everything. So coming over here to my magic table, you'll see I have a few things here, including the Chimera Racing header. Now, to be honest, I didn't even know this header existed. I was actually looking for a replacement Yoshimura header made by Yoshi for the RS9, and it turns out that they were discontinued quite some time ago. So in my research, I was expecting to probably have to fab something up or have something custom made, but then I stumbled across this, and I'm like, well, this is literally exactly what I'm looking for. Stainless steel, a nice little polish to it, flange on there, and literally ready to slip up to really any high mount exhaust. So in theory, this should fit, but I actually don't really know. So we're gonna find that out here in a minute. But we have that, and we have our new gasket here, which is gonna go here in the head. Now, normally people don't replace these and they just kind of send it, but I figured why not and do it right. So shout out to Steady Garage for not only selling this, which is great, but when I had questions about the header and the fitment, they had asked me if I had a gasket, and I said no, and they ended up sending it out for free. So that's pretty cool. So thank you to the boys over at Steady Garage.
so I'm sitting here looking at the bike, just kind of going through my own thoughts, thinking about kind of what's next, and I'm not going to lie to you guys. I'm pretty pumped with how this whole thing is turning out. I'm starting to really kind of see the compounding fixes I've been doing start to pay off, and it's just slowly but surely getting more and more cleaned up. But it's funny because we are barely, scraping the surface of what's going to be coming for this bike and kind of the other things that we're going to do to really make this thing look super awesome, perform super awesome. And I'm just kind of laughing because I could probably stop here, minus touching up some paint and getting the wheels refinished and throwing on a front fender, and I could probably be pretty happy. But I know how much happier I'll be once everything really comes together for not that much more money, to be honest. I mean, really not spending a whole lot here to try to clean this up, but I'm really pumped with how that exhaust turned out, and I realize it's actually kind of late, so we're going to start this thing up first thing in the morning and hear how it sounds.
One day later.
And good morning, everyone. It is a cold and somewhat wet morning. We had quite a bit of rain last night, but a lot of it's dried up, so I might be able to rip the Grom later today, but I have been dying to start this thing up to hear the exhaust. So I know the Chimera header pipe is a bit thicker than the stock pipe in some areas. I didn't actually measure the diameter, but ideally, it's just a straighter flowing design, and we pick up a little bit of sound and a little bit of performance, especially once we get the tune done. So let me flip the mic around and start this thing up. Picking this thing on. Come on. Seriously, after I fixed all this crap, just start up. Feeling no leaks. All right, so it's been idling for a few minutes now, and it looks like the idle's starting to stabilize around that 1500 now that it's warmed up. It still sounds a little poppy, but guys, I think that this this sounds good. All right, so quick update and a slight change of plans, and you guys might hate me for this, but I think you'll understand. So it's been about a week and a half, almost 2 weeks since we put the header pipe here on the Grom, and I have yet to get this bike out due to the freaking weather. It has been nonstop rain and these like apocalyptic winds. It's been pretty nuts. And on top of that, more and more time has been passing by, and we are quickly approaching like premium riding season, which means this bike can't have a whole lot of downtime if we're not making progress on it. So what we need to do is actually get this ECU out of the bike to get it sent off to go get tuned before the tuner gets overwhelmed with everybody sending them all of their ECUs. So this ECU is going to go to Cameron Jones Racing, CGR Performance, who actually did the first tune on my white Honda Grom. I called that tune like a god tier tune. It was an incredible tune that was able to keep up with big bore kits. Like, it completely transformed this 125. And so I have been dying to get this sent off to him, but I was hoping that we were gonna have more time to get this out for a proper ride before then, so we could have like a before and after. It looks like it's not gonna happen. We need to get this ECU out of there and off, which means that this video has to come to an end. I know, I'm sorry. I will leave you with the final filming of getting the ECU out and sent off, but we are gonna have to end it here, and our first ride will be once we get the ECU back and installed back on the bike, so then I can actually give you guys like a proper riding video. We're gonna get this thing out on the street and see how it's performing, see how it's handling. Ideally, the tune fixes a lot of the quirks that this bike has and makes it run better than ever. So we'll actually see a good baseline of what this bike's going to be very, very shortly with the new tune, and I can't wait. So if you guys love the Grom videos and you want to see what becomes of this $1,000 Grom and how cool we can make it, please make sure you give me a big thumbs up and hit that like button, hit the subscribe button down below so you don't miss any of the future videos on this. And next video, it's gonna be awesome because we're gonna freaking rip this thing. So
As always, I'll catch you guys next one. It's ALLDAYANTHONY. Peace.